Audio sounding okay to you over there?
And welcome to the Part-Time Nerd Podcast with me, your host, Alan. And joining me today is the great Hornee Gnome. How are you doing?
Hey, what's up? Good. I'm good. I'm doing great. Fantastic.
Good to hear, man. And here we are checking out the 2018 movie Ready Player One. This got a 7.4 out of 10 on IMDb and a 72% on Rotten Tomatoes. This is based off of the best-selling book, Ready Player One. Let's just jump into it. I mean, first things first, when I watched the movie, I'm immediately sucked in as you kick it off with Jump, right? The music you right away. If you're going to start a movie off, I mean, that's got to, you do that or you do Kickstart My Heart, right?
There you go.
Bring you in. They went with Jump. I absolutely loved it. What are some of your thoughts on this movie?
So, I love that the movie is set so far in the future. It's 2043, I think, right? Something like that. Oh, there we go. In Columbus, Ohio. And so, but all of it is references. Like almost all of the playing, all of the, like a lot of, the vehicle he drives is the DeLorean. And there's a bunch of callbacks, mostly to 80s and 90s pop culture stuff, with a little bit of some other stuff mixed in there. That's what I really loved.
The movie's a giant Easter egg, is what it is.
Absolutely.
I know we're going to talk a little bit about the book versus the movie. Let's focus on the book, or not the book, the movie for right now. Let's stick with that. But essentially, the premise is you have this game that's created called the Oasis, and it's essentially like an overglorified version of like EverQuest or World of Warcraft or something like that. But it's just a big giant open world where anything can happen. There's so many different things you can do. You have all the different skins that the characters can do, kind of like a Fortnite type thing. And everyone essentially lives in this world. Well, one of the creators, he dies, and he's essentially giving away the game, and like trillions of dollars. This dude was worth an absurd amount of money. But you've got to play his game, which is that's the very first big difference between the books and the movies. But in the movies, it's a race that they have to do, and you're trying to figure out how to do it, how to go through it. It's been years and years and years. No one's figured anything out. Most of the people trying to compete are all part of a big corporation, but then you have the Gunthers, which are the fans, essentially. You're one-off people.
Obviously that was a big difference between the two, obviously too. What I did like, however, that they really didn't like play on a whole lot is they didn't play on the fact that like nobody had done this for a long. They talk about it in like two or three sentences of the movie. They talk about how this, he died in this day, and this is what's been going on, and everybody apparently knows that the race is the key. That's how you get the first, or you win the race. That's how you get to the first key to unlock this Easter egg that you're looking for or whatever. Mm-hmm. But I thought it was a big departure from how it unfolds, obviously, like I said, in the book. But they did a really good job with it, though. I thought it was one of those things where, how do I want to say it? It made it simple and short to get to the first key to keep the story going in the movie. And I liked that, it was interactive, and I liked how they did that.
Yeah, it was, again, huge difference, but still enjoyable, still fun. With that, you get the chance to throw in some more Easter eggs and things like that. And we talked, that's what this movie is. Halliday was a big 80s pop culture fan, and so everything that he does, and everything that's referenced is to the 80s pop culture, um, and that's part of the appeal to it, right? Is it's just a big giant homage to the 80s.
Yeah,
Um,
to his life and everything. Here's something that I didn't I didn't understand about that like lead in sequence with the race. So Artemis, which would be the female protagonist or the female protagonist in this situation or whatever, the girl of his dreams or whatever,
right.
he's freaking out that she's at the race that he's at, right?
Hmm.
So he's acting like she's never been there before. This is the only way to get to the first key. The only everybody knows this is how you do it.
Right.
And it seems like it's her first time ever there, and then she pulls that shit with King Kong, and like she doesn't know he's gonna pop out. So she's obviously never ran that race before that first time, and it makes me think like, how is this possible when everybody knows that this is what you're supposed to do, to get that first key or whatever.
And maybe that was the first time that she got in there with the motorcycle where she was identifiable, right? Um, and maybe that's the first time she made it that far.
That's
You
true.
don't
That's true.
know. But yeah, it definitely does give off that vibe of, wait a minute, you're a big Gunther, you're a big person who's trying to find this, and she has her reasons why and all of that. You would expect them to kind of, but that's also like you're dealing with huge differences between the books and with the movies and how they did it.
Yeah.
Um, I still really enjoyed. I wish I had seen the movie first. I honestly do, um,
I agree with you 100% on that.
because after first watch, I was 100% disappointed in the movie, um, because it was nothing like the book.
No.
It really is not anything like the book. You still have kind of the same story loosely, um, but there's huge differences between them. You've got kids who are going to school just to be able to find the keys and things like that, and
Yeah, yeah,
like,
absolutely.
how the key is found in the first key is found isn't this big event that everybody is doing. It is something that Percival finds out on his own, and he's like the first one there to figure it out, and it's not this just big event, right?
Absolutely. The two first. So the biggest difference between the books, obviously, and the movie is that the first key and the second key are completely different. Like the from the storyline and everything like that. There's still three keys. It is still, they follow the same kind of path. It's nostalgia this and nostalgia that. They try to use some of that movie stuff and references and stuff like that. But the biggest difference, obviously, is that the first key is not anywhere close to where it is in the movie, and or close to that storyline. And the same thing with the second key. I feel like you lost a lot of people on that between the book and the movie because they were expecting a certain path to go down, and then you're like, "Oh, this isn't anything like that." And then I almost feel like the race seems too easy. Like you have to figure out the like going backwards thing. But
Right.
other than that, it seems like it's really easy compared to like the path that he has to take in the book to get to the first key and that whole thing.
Yeah, in the books, you really feel his struggle more than you do in the movies. In the books, he can't go anywhere, he can't travel anywhere because he doesn't have the coins to do it. Um, Now they kind of hint that he's kind of broken with the race, right? And he's got to start at the back of the race because he's almost out of gas, so he can get everyone else's coins as they're eliminated and knocked out, so that he
Yeah,
can get more gas. But you don't really pick up that struggle. Um, there's just there's a lot different. Um, I highly recommend reading the book. Highly recommend reading the book's great, and the movie's good though. Don't get me wrong. The first
yeah.
time I watched it, I was disappointed. The second time I watched it, I enjoyed it because I knew
You like it for different reasons.
you like it for different reasons. But after you've watched it the first time and okay, this is completely different. Now you're going into it with a different mindset. So you're able to enjoy it for what it is versus what it wasn't. But I had a lot of fun with it.
I think it's great. I think they do it. They do a tremendous job with what references they could make, and I think that especially in a big Hollywood movie like this, that's the biggest difference in the references and the storyline and how they use it in the book compared to in the storyline. There's got to be a lot of copyright stuff that they have to deal with in a big motion picture, even if it's directed by Steven Spielberg, which this movie was, right? And and everything like that. I think there's a ton of copyright stuff that they would have had to go through in order to use the references that are used in the book. There is a million references to Star Wars. There is a bunch of that stuff, and there is very little bit of that in the movie. And I think a lot of that comes down to they're owned by different people, and and so I think it would have cost as much as the movie costs just for the copyrights to use the same references that they did in the book.
Yeah, and that's where I've kind of been conflicted with the Ready Player 2, the book, and I know they're going to be doing the movie. I almost don't want to read the book until after I watch the movie, but then again, I want to read the book because I enjoyed the first one. But if I do that, I think I want to go through and reread the first one because it's been a long time. Again, this came out in 2018, and I think I read it. It was either in 2018 or 2017. I can't remember what month the movie came out, but when the movie came out, I saw it was coming out, and I was like, oh, well, let me read that book because I had heard the book was good. And so I read the book first, and then shortly after I read the book, the movie came out, and I watched it when it came out.
At this point, I read Armada, which I hear that they're making a movie of. That was the book that he wrote before Ready Player One, and then I've read Ready Player Two. By reading, I definitely mean that on Audible I listen to it because Will Wheaton is the voice on both the Audible for Ready Player One and for Ready Player and Armada. He's the voice for that. And Ready Player Two. Now that I think about it, on Audible, he's also the voice there. And so I've read them all, and I'm not going to spoil anything. I think the second book is great too. I think they're going to have a hard time with the copyright stuff, just like they did in the first movie.
Right.
But yeah, I would be. I think that if they did follow that same kind of storyline, you could do it without some of that same stuff. In the second book, you just would have to do it different, just like they did in the first movie.
Yep. Yeah. Anything else you want to talk about on this? Any other comparisons, the book versus the movie? Anything else you got on this one?
So I do feel like they made the story smaller.
Yeah.
In the movie, and I don't mean like time wise. I mean like in a sense, you weren't as connected to the characters as you are in the book. The characters come from like all over the planet, like the actual physical planet. In the book, like I want to say that Parzival is from. I think he's actually from like Chicago or whatever, or Cleveland, and then Artemis is from like somewhere completely else, like Pennsylvania or something like that, and H is from California, and Sho and Zaito are from Japan or whatever, and they all get flown in the book to be together and whatever. They are not like finding each other across what seems to be, Metropolis City or something like that. So it seems like they kind of dialed a lot of things back and made it like a simpler story, and I think it kind of lost something.
You definitely lost some luster with that because there's a ton of character development and in how the characters meet each other in the books and things like that. Like when this starts off, they're all best friends with the exception of Artemis. Whereas you don't have that necessarily in the they know of each other and they're kind of friends, but they're not like they are here. They're hardcore BFFs from the jump beginning of it. You don't have that in there. I would almost like to have seen this as like maybe like a 2-part movie.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, absolutely. I think they could have done or a series that they spent money on. Like
mhm,
I feel like this could have been a really fantastic, made for Netflix series or something. If they would have put some money behind it, and like
mhm,
they could have really done something cool with it that way. I also feel like doing it the way they did it, I think they shortchanged it a little bit.
mhm.
I hate to be this guy. They could have done the whole thing in like CGI, and I think it would have bowed better than like the back and forth, but maybe not. I don't know.
You gotta have that back and forth, the real
Yeah,
world versus the video game, because that's also the big thing with it. And at the end of it, they talk about, they create these rules, and one of the rules that they created was the Oasis is shut down on Tuesdays and Thursdays so that you can get out and experience life,
yeah,
and not just be trapped inside of this video game and living your life through there. That you're actually living in actual life. So I do like that part CGI, that part real life, because it gives you that separation of the two.
yeah.
So uh,
Um, is there anything in the movie that you felt like you could have completely lived without, though?
I mean, it's hard to say that because it's so much different than the book, right? Um, because I could have done without a lot of it and more of the book aspect of it, right?
Yeah, yeah. No, I completely agree.
Because like we talked about, you completely change the story, you change the characters and the development, and just really
I
being
think
able
they.
to know them.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry. I
No,
think
go ahead.
they. I think they cut a lot of like important character parts really, really short. Like Og had a much bigger part in like the book than he did in the show or in the movie, and I think that kind of did it an injustice because finding out that he was the curator was like
Right.
one of the biggest, greatest twists of the whole
Yeah.
like book to movie period. And aside from like finding out that H was a girl the whole time, um, was a huge huge plot twist kind of thing, and they just kind of downplayed the whole deal.
Yeah. They just kind of said, this happened. You're like, oh, okay. But I mean, all in all, I enjoyed the movie. Going back
Absolutely.
watching it now, I had fun with it. Watching it, I watched it again today, and had fun with it before we recorded. I enjoy it. I love For me, I'm a big on nostalgia guy. So when you're hitting me with those old songs, with those old references, throwing that stuff in there, throwing the DeLorean in there, throw the Chucky doll that you
The
get in
Buckaroo
there,
Banzai stuff, yeah.
Buckaroo Banzai, when you have the whole crew of people that are all the Halo guys, the Master Chiefs.
Oh
I
yeah, yep.
absolutely love all
Iron
that stuff.
Giant in there and everything, yeah.
I can't get enough of that stuff. I love things that are packed with nostalgia. It tugs on my heartstrings, and I want more of it. But go watch it, check it out. Especially if you're a kid of the '80s, you'll definitely enjoy it and like it. Or if you raise your kids like I raise my kids, and they watch everything and consume everything from the '80s because I force it down their throats.
Yep.
They enjoy it, and so when they watch the things like this, they too enjoy it. They have fun with it because they get all those references. So
Um, I also recommend 100%. If you watch this movie and you enjoy this movie at all, do yourself the like social justice of taking the time and reading the book
yes,
because I think like it is hands down my favorite novel I've ever read. Um,
it's really good.
and if you take the time, you'll enjoy both at a certain point. It takes you a little bit of time to get over the fact that obviously the movie isn't as good as the book and things like that. But the movie is still a great movie. It's still, an 8 out of 10 probably. It's a great movie. It's
Yeah. I think if I had known going in that it was going to be really, really different, I mean, you expect some differences, but for them to change it the way that they did, which was a ton, I think I would have enjoyed it more my first watch. And that's why I went back for that second watch and really enjoyed it and had fun with it versus the first time I watched it, where I spent most of the time going, this isn't how this happens. This isn't, you got to get out of that. And just enjoy it for what it is. And again, knowing going into it that it's completely different, you can definitely enjoy both.
Yep, so. Absolutely.
Yep. All right, guys. Hey, thank you so much for watching. Like, share, comment, follow, subscribe, all that fun stuff. If there's anything you want us to watch, shoot us over an email, parttimenerdpodcast@gmail.com. Until next time, we'll talk to you guys later. Deuces.